Steve Thomas will be picking up the action from the pits near the slow-mo. This great boat of the past is going to come out and make a few runs in the water. For a minute, drinking Mike, at least audio-wise, as we take a look at the slow-mo. Mike, a little bit of background on this great boat. I believe, if I'm not incorrect, that at one time, didn't it hold the record?
Well, it held the world straightaway speed record. It held almost every course record there was. It was a Gold Cup champion. It was the first successful three-point prop riding unlimited hydroplane. And in the cockpit is George Woods, driver of the Mr. Pringles, and also beside him is Joe Taggart. 82 years young Joe Taggart was the fellow who was driving the Slow-mo-shun IV when she disintegrated in August 1956 in Detroit, preparing for the Gold Cup race. So this has got to be a real thrill for Joe, too.
You can probably see it from there on your binoculars, so we'll let you kind of take it around the course and anything you remember about this great boat. Now, of course, in the old days, Michael, you fill us in for the folks that have started watching unlimited hydroplane racing in the last few years. They've seen canopies. They've seen people strapped in, exactly like USAC or NASCAR, where they really can't get out of that frame. But in these old boats, if I'm not mistaken, there just weren't any straps of any kind. Most of the drivers wanted to get out of that boat if it started to go anywhere out of the water.
I got to tell you, just watching this run, Wayne, is doing things to me emotionally, because this is such an incredible, this takes me right back to my childhood. Look at the way the boat leaps a little bit through the lower corner. Very narrow transom on the boat. And it was just the beginnings, if you will, of the refined lines we see on unlimited race boats today. The boat was a lightweight runner. In fact, folks say, well, gee, you know, that boat leaps all over the place. That's the way they looked back then, folks. That was as good as it got. And look at that rooster tail. They just don't throw a rooster tail like that anymore, Scotty.
He just needs to come out from underneath that bridge, and you'd see 250,000 people go nuts, wouldn't you?
Well, the fans are really, I must tell you, there's almost a pall, just a silence here along the beach, because this is a piece of history. This boat has not been wet in 38 years.
Isn't that something? Taggart, it was funny, somebody asked him during one of the interviews that he had if he was going to be in a boat, and he said to the effect, Hades, I wouldn't come all the way this far if I didn't get to go for a ride.
Oh yeah, Joe was a great name, of course, in post-war hydroplane racing, and was one of Seattle's big stars. Long before there was a Sonics, long before there was a Seahawks or a Mariners, there was Slow-mo-shun IV, and she was the city's pride and joy.
Look at them bouncing around in there. We want to thank Unocal for their support of the Seafair Unocal opening ceremonies. You should see all the boat drivers down here, Mike, standing up on their decks. I see Chip, there's Tommy Deeth. They're all standing up looking at this boat go by. On that head-on shot, of course, you see the air getting under it. That was what Ted Jones was trying to do. There were a lot of unlimited hydroplanes of the era that could get the front end out of the water, but the back end of the boat could not fly like they wanted it to. The Slow-mo-shun was the one that perfected that. And of course, the first time on Lake Washington this boat ran was almost 40 years ago, and when it did, folks stopped their cars on Lake Washington Boulevard and looked out there and basically, what is that? You want a thrill for Taggart. I mean, a gentleman at 83, pray that many of us live that long, but that's got to bring back some great memories for the man. He probably hasn't been in a boat like this. How long, Mike, do you think?
Well, Joe did not drive professionally again. It did not race after that 1956 Detroit accident, so this is his first ride.
Isn't that something?
And it's really a shame, Wayne, that they didn't have a third seat in there. You know, I would have loved to see Ted Jones in there. Ted designed the boat, and he drove it in Detroit and brought the Cup actually to Seattle in 1951. So they really need to get one more seat in that old lady.
Yeah, well, Ted, I'm sure, is on the beach watching it run.
I bet he is. Gentlemen, we're going to break away for the minute as we see the slow-mo running around the course, giving everybody certainly deja vu. It is absolutely beautiful. I'm Wayne Cody, and we're in the pits for the big Rainier Cup. And of course, we're about now 53 minutes away from the very first heat. We'll line them all up for you, show you our camera positions. There's the old pictures. What a comparison. We'll be back. Welcome back, everybody. That's the slow-mo making its way around the course for about the third or fourth time. I have no idea what speed it's trying to run, but what a magnificent sight to see this old boat. If you're into hydroplane racing and you remember the old days, yes, you'll be able to go to the new museum in Tacoma pretty soon. There's another organization in South Seattle. They've restored 6, 8, 10, 12 boats. But here's one that's on the water and running with one of the greats of all time. I think that's just beautiful. All right, let's check around the pits and see what's happening. Steve Thomas.
Okay, Wayne, we're here with a couple of men who had a lot to do with the restoration of this Slow-mo-shun IV. First of all, Carl Lind, the executive director, Museum of History and Industry, and the proud day for everybody to have this boat back in the water, Carl.
Well, it certainly is, Steve. What a delightful experience. And it's part of the museum's program of bringing history to life. And we're so glad to be able to remind about 4 decades of Seattleites of the hydroplane racing history. It was a gutsy call by our trustees who allowed a major artifact to be used in an active status, but it worked out well, and I'm proud that it has gone so very well today. And my thanks to the fellow on my left here for the excellent work of the Antique Raceboat Foundation in restoring this boat for the museum.
That gentleman to Carl's left is Ken Muscatel, the Antique Raceboat Association director. And Ken, boy, a lot of work, and it all pays off when it happens like today and everything works smoothly, and she's out there, the grand old lady, back on the water.
It's fantastic. It's worth it because of all the people that have brought back here, people like Anker Jensen, the builder, and Ted Jones, and Joe Taggart, one of the drivers who rode in the boat, 50 volunteers, and all the good work of the Museum of History and Industry. It couldn't happen without them. It was fantastic. I'm speechless.
Ken, how long did it take you to restore the boat?
They left the museum, February 16th?
February 16th.
We're out the wall, second story, and it's done today, so it was about 5.5 months.
Okay, let's talk to the man who was the driver out there today. Also alongside was Joe Taggart, who was the last man to be in the boat in 1956. The man behind the wheel today, George Woods, and George, had to be a thrill for you. I know you're a guy who's followed this sport in this area for a long time.
I'll tell you, I'm just speechless. You know, growing up here in Auburn, and I still live in Sumner, and be able to come out here with Joe Taggart and all the people that have the slow-mo, I'm just, what can I say? It's fantastic.
All right, thank you, gentlemen, and congratulations on a job well done. Wayne, back to you.
Thanks, Dave. Boy, it's just great to see the
searching for the combination to give him his back-to-back victory from last year. We'll look forward to a good day of racing now, and I'll pass it over to Steve Thomas.
Look that way. Look right there. Look right there. All right, Wayne, we're right here next to the KISW, and we're hoping in just a moment to talk with Jack Berry and also with Fred Leland, the owner of this boat. And we'll move down just a bit here and get those two gentlemen with us. Jack, come on over. Jack Berry, you're kind of the hard luck guy of this qualifying, and certainly the last couple of days. You had some problems on Friday. Tell me, first of all, what happened on Friday? You took it out, and the first lap trying to qualify it, she wouldn't go around.
Are we referring to the last round of the day when she caught fire?
That's right.
I really don't know what happened at that point. I didn't know it was on fire till I got out of the canopy and I heard one of the nitrous bottles explode. So that was my signal to make a quick exit.
You had some problems also in the Tri-Cities last week, trying to get qualified, try to get going over there, and that didn't work out too well either. You gave it another shot here this morning. You went out between 10 and 11 this morning, and I know you had it started up. What happened when you got out of the course?
Well, I hit the nitrous down here in this south turn on our first lap, and apparently the fuel enrichment valve stuck. And what that does is send fuel into the motor under boost pump pressure. It's just an open stream of fuel that the motor doesn't need unless we're using the nitrous. So it drowned the motor and it loaded it up, and then we never just couldn't get it cleaned out.
Kind of tough, Jack, I imagine, when you run, on the budget you do to make it from week to week, to try to get qualified. Obviously, you love it, and you really love the sport to be in it.
Well, yeah. If you didn't, you wouldn't be out here and going through what we've gone through the last week and a half. But that's the way the cards fall in this boat racing game sometimes, and so you just gotta take it in stride and come on out to the next boat race and try it again.
Okay, hopefully better luck next time. Thanks very much, Jack.
Thank you.
With Jack Berry, Wayne.
Well, they did not race the first 4. They get to Tri-Cities. They didn't qualify today. They couldn't get it started. The U99.9 KISW Miss Rock. Freddie Leland's boat. Doug Beach tries to get it running. Jack Berry tries to drive it. Jack's never had a win. I'm not sure Jack's ever had a start. What can I tell you? There's the Miss Slow-mo coming up on the dock. All right, we'll take a break and come back. The opening ceremonies continue of the big Rainier Cup on Lake Washington. We're now 37 minutes away from heat number 1.
And took the Winston Eagle out first thing this morning and popped a hot end, which we've had some problems with hot ends, but not like this. We actually had a wheel failure this time, which is not a lot of fun. We put an awful lot of parts in the bilge, but we put a fresh motor in right now, and we are ready to run again. We just fired it on the trailer, put a different prop on, and we're pretty happy with the boat ride, but hopefully we can keep the motor together.
You had such a good ride on the East Coast. You came west, things haven't been going too well. What's the problem?
Yeah, the motors back east just played flawlessly. We didn't hurt a single part in 4 races, and we get out here in our home turf, and all of a sudden things are flying out right and left. But the other boats are having the same kinds of problems. I know the Circus guys lost 3 engines on Friday, and I know the Budweiser guys lost a couple engines in Tri-City. So I don't know if the conditions are different here, and we just have the motors tuned for the back east type conditions, or what the problem is, but we better sort them out pretty quick or we're going to run out of parts.
You feel you're going to be ready for 1A, though?
Oh, absolutely. We'll make the starting gun for sure.
All right, Jim Lucero, crew chief here at the Winston Eagle. Some minor problems. Look like it's going to be okay, Wayne.
I'll tell you something, that flag you see right there, if we pull that camera out just a little bit, see that flag there is going to be one of the problems of the day. It is getting windy out here. They're calling for gusts of 15 to 25 miles an hour. I think we're having those right now. And of course, the wind affects the boats. You all know that if you've been watching. It creates a chop. It is not good. It's not a glass.
George is sitting up on the deck rather relaxing, and right next door to him at the KUB Oh Boy Alberto boat, they're working feverishly. So there's kind of a difference in opinion down here as to which way to approach this race, but they're all busy. It looks like we've got a good setup for the first heat, and we look forward to quite an outing from over here. Now back to you, Ron.
Thank you very much. We are with probably the best of the rest, one of the fastest piston boats in the history of hydroplane racing, Mike Hansen, driver of the Miss Mazda. It's been a good season for you.
Yeah, we started out real slow in the Miami and Detroit races. We had some things we were trying, just didn't pan out for us. But since then, we basically went back to the setup we had last year. The boat's been running real consistent and real well for us. So we're real pleased going into today's race. We saved all our good stuff all week long during qualifying for here today on Sunday. So we got to do real well.
So Mike, you know, throughout the 80s, the turbine boats, more and more turbine boats, fewer piston-powered boats. You're kind of hanging on to what some people would say the past, or some people would say the preferred mode of transportation for these races. What's your attitude about the whole thing?
Well, the pistons are definitely a dying breed. The turbines aren't much more expensive to really run once you made the initial buy. You know, once you set up the money to buy the turbines, they ain't all that expensive to run. The big catch we have is these Allisons are getting harder and harder to find, and they're real labor intensive. It takes up to 400 hours to build a motor versus maybe 100 hours in a turbine. And when we run a 12 race series like the HFC series here, the hours just kill you because we got races right after each other, and it's we're only halfway through the season and we're already halfway through our motors, so it's we got to baby some stuff right now.
Well, the talk around the pits this morning, of course, is the wind and the choppy conditions, and some of the boats have been kind of light. What do you think? Is that going to affect you a lot today?
It'll affect us less than it would some of the turbine boats. We're about 1,500 pounds heavier than most of the turbines boats are, so it shouldn't affect us as much. So it'll actually bring them down more to our level, so it ought to help us in the overall run today.
All right, good luck to you, Mike Hansen, driver of the Miss Mazda. Of course, he did have that 142 at Syracuse to set the all-time piston-powered boat record for qualifying, Wayne, so he's got a pretty good boat here.
You got it right, Ron. Mike, talking about that, let's get out of Mike Fitzsimmons and also Scotty Pierce. Talking about those engines, the piston engines, gentlemen, answer a question for me that most fans who are casual might have. These things were built by Rolls-Royce. They're supposed to be, you know, one of the most dependable engines in the world. Why do they go through so many? Why do they break down? Why can't they take an engine and run an entire year with it?
Probably the number one reason was they never were intended for marine racing. The engine, the Rolls-Royce, the Merlin 1650, was built for the Spitfire aircraft in the Second World War, a fighter plane. It was made to run in pretty smooth air and high and thin altitudes, and was made to carburate. It wasn't meant to be turbocharged or any of some of the innovations that have been introduced to the engines. The Allison 1710 in the P-51 Mustang, same thing. Actually, the engines are mounted, Scott, upside down and in reverse of the way they were in the aircraft, and they cavitate the devil out of them with these water props, and they just weren't meant for that.
Yes, and you know, they inject nitrous oxide into them, and that isn't something that is normally induced fuel to the engine. And probably, Wayne, the biggest reason more than anything is we've just hit the half-century mark in age on those engines. I mean, to think that those engines were designed, manufactured by the thousands by companies like Maytag, and you know, during the World War II war effort, they're 50 years old today, and it's awful hard to compete with something
just the metal is plenty tired in them, Wayne. That's the reason.
During the afternoon, I want to check with you fellas and find out, when you've got a piston boat, as Mike has and some of the others here, how much that cost is to take the hull and transfer it over to turbines. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the afternoon, to A and then 1B. The number of boats, the largest number, Mike, in history that you remember coming here to Lake Washington, and then maybe the smallest number. I've got it in the back of my mind that with only 9 boats today, that may be one of the smallest fields. Am I right or wrong?
Ties the 1968 record, so yeah, you're right. Yeah, and the largest number was 17 of them.
Oh, boy. Where have they gone? Where are they, Mike?
Well, the expense of running a good racing organization has gone up considerably, and the cost is associated with this transition into the turbines, as you alluded to earlier, Wayne. And as a result, we're getting, I think, much better quality teams, but we're getting fewer of them. Truth of the matter is that you only need 2 or 3 more, and there isn't any more room in the pits to park them anyway.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
I'd much rather see 9 boats that start and finish a race and do as well as these boats have done. We have 4 boats that 4 times this year have qualified at over 150 miles an hour. Now, that's never happened before.
All right, let's talk about this Heat 1A and line them up for us. We'll have 5 boats in there. And what about the draw yesterday? How does that work?
I think Scott would agree that it's a pretty even draw. We have the Miss Circus in Heat 1A at 157.8, winner of 2 races this year. And certainly Chip Hanauer would like to defend his championship, won so brilliantly here just a year ago. The Winston Eagle, 141.654. This boat qualified faster over in Tri-Cities at 155.7. And I got to say, that's the fastest that sled has ever gone. Jim has alluded a little bit to some problems this morning mechanically with the boat. Don't buy it. They got a deep inventory. I think that they've got plenty of equipment in the truck there. They can race all day long. The boat is looking good as far as the planing attitude of the race boat is concerned as they stick it in the water for the first heat. The Old Boy Oberto Miss KUBE at 140.029. This is a fast-track turbine learning curve, I think you'd have to say, and they were doing very, very well. The other Old Boy Oberto, well, that was actually Mitch Evans, and that's the Cooper Express Racing Team, which has the name Old Boy Oberto, the Wild Waves, and at 120.4, they're conserving some equipment, but they've got good steady running Allison turbo equipment for that race boat. And winding out the Thor Racing, well, unfortunately Thor is just simply at the bottom end of the curve here. They're really not competitive, but they do have the opportunity to get in and make some points. They've done that so far on the season. So 1A is pretty decently balanced. 1B, we've got a couple of good ones in that one as well. The Pringles and the Budweiser, as you see them. The record holder for this course, Tom Deeth. And Bernie's been busy breaking records all year long, and Tom has as well. 158.6 is really fast for this lumpy 2-miler. And the Mr. Pringles at 149.7. Boat looks as trim as it's ever looked before. I think it's ready to race well here today. Full set Miss Mazda at 135.2, as Mike Hansen told you a few minutes ago. He's the fastest of the piston boats. He's a very sharp running piston boat, but he's not with those turbines at all. And here's the other boat, the 107.7 Jackpot Food Mart.
Wait and see what happens, but so far so good in Heat 1A for the Winston Eagle driver Jim Krautfeld. Has been very tight-lipped so far, but we're going to wait and see what happens. I think it's going to run just fine, but who knows?
Let me ask Mike on that. Mike, you drop a new engine in a boat like this. They did crank it up on the dock, but I imagine Jim's very anxious to get that thing in the water and see what it's going to do out there. It runs a lot different in the water than it does on the dock.
Yeah, he's pretty confident, though, that the equipment that Lucero's given him will run for him. And this, by the way, marks the first time that we've seen Jim Krautfeld back on the race course since his accident in Miami in 1988. And we're just delighted to have him back here. This is one devil of a boat racer, and it's great to have him back on this race course. Fans really like to watch this man drive.
Now, Now, he runs that sprint in Syracuse and beats everybody, and then lo and behold, he gets in an automobile accident.
Yeah, he got nailed. Fortunately, nobody else was injured. He was. He caved in a couple of ribs, and he's actually been a little hurt since then, and not completely up to snuff.
Still may be, Michael. We'll have to see. Jim in the last couple of races has run real strong the first lap or two, and then is, for whatever reason, has fallen back and fallen behind. So if he can string all 5 laps together, I expect that he'll be very, very tough.
Mike, last year we had only a couple of weeks to determine why Kropfeld had left the Bud team. As you've looked at it and analyzed it for a year, what happened with Bernie and Jim Kropfeld?
Well, I think it was a personality thing largely with the crew and with Jim, and it was the right kind of decision to make. Let's face it, these guys are all businessmen. This is a business. You have to have the right kind of chemistry to make your organization work the best, whether you race a boat or, you sell popcorn. It doesn't make any difference. You just have to have the right people. And Jim had to go looking for a new ride, and the Bud people had to go a new direction themselves, and they agreed to disagree, and that was it.
And they got 2 for 1, so it was a good deal for the Bud, and Jim's got a nice ride with the Eagle, so what could be better?
You certainly can't argue with what was left behind. Scott, of course, is going to be driving for Budweiser, as well as Tom Deeth, who's been just magnificent in that slip.
Speaking about what was left behind, when Jim Kropfeld left the Bud team, his wife stayed on as their promotion woman.
Right.
I think that's interesting.
That's right.
All right, gentlemen, we're getting closer by the minute now, about 8 minutes from Heat 1A here at the Unlimited Hydroplane Races, the 7th event of the year. The Bud has won 4, the Circus has won 2. Everybody else has been shut out. Maybe today will bring a new winner. Chip Hanauer is the defending champion. You're watching Jim Kropfeld get buckled into the Winston Eagle. The Oboyo.
More lift underneath the boat, and the boat's going to want to get away from you. We do have a canard wing on the front of the boat with the pedal on the left side that we operate with our left foot. And then, of course, chopping up the water, and it makes big holes, and it's hard to get through that. Going away from the wind, you're fine. You can just leg it and go as hard as you want.
5 minutes. 5 minutes.
As you hear in the background with the public address announcer, 5 minutes to the start. Now, there are no flag starts like they had in the old days. There's a huge clock down at the start-finish line. We'll tell you more about that as we go. The action of Heat 1A is brought to you by True Value. Get a tough job to do? Well, you can do it with True Value hardware. And by Skipper's Seafood and Chowder House, oceans apart from the other fast foods.
Winston's having trouble.
Seafair salutes Eagle Snacks for their support of this race. All right, gentlemen, Winston Eagle, you probably got them in their glasses up until that second when I mentioned them, and then we had them in our picture. They didn't look too good. They finally looked like they finally got it rolling.
I was just telling Mike Wayne that I thought the Winston was going to park out there in the middle of the track.
Yeah, it looked like it, didn't it?
Lucky for us.
All right, let's take a look at the rundown now for Heat 1A. Here they are. Here's our combatants. First up and foremost, we've got some fast boats in here. The old boy Alberto Miss KUBE, Jim Harvey, making the change from piston engines to turbines this year. The boat built back in 1983 was a former Atlas Van Lines. This is a big winning sled, and it's got a rookie driver in Mark Tate, and he is a fine driver. He's got a few things to learn, gotten in the way a couple of times, and he has, of course, learned the lesson the hard way. And there will be some discussion about Mark, I'm sure, in some of the camps today as he continues to wind his way probably to the Rookie of the Year honors this year. Let's take a look at the rest of them now. The Thor Racing. This is a boat that's going to be trailing back behind. Unfortunately, this old 1979 former Squire shop is just out of place on the race course now. It's a kind of a dinosaur. But Jerry Hopp is a fine driver. Good shoe. Actually deserves a much better ride. And he's a hometown boy, as you can see from Snohomish. He's been in there all season long. The old boy Alberto presents Wild Waves, and that's Ed Cooper Sr. and Jr.'s boat from Madison, Indiana. Mitch Evans from Chelan is the driver, built back in 1988. This boat was a Columbia Cup winner a year ago. Mitch Evans, of course, the son of Norm Evans, a racing family that dates right back to the beginning of Northwest Unlimited Hydroplane Racing. He's a great boat builder as well as a very fine driver. The Winston Eagle, and as we mentioned, she had a little problem getting going, but she seems to be okay now mechanically, though a little flighty as she goes down to the lower corner. Steve Woolmer, the owner of the boat, Competition Specialties down in Auburn, Washington. Jim Lucero, Super Wrench, is the man who put it together. And Jim Kropfeld makes his return to Lake Washington for the first time since 1987. His hometown Cincinnati, the former Bud driver, is one fine, respectable driver you do not overlook. Jim Kropfeld ever on any race course. This boat, the defending champion from last year, actually not the same hull that won here, but it's the boat that ran so very, very well on the 1989 circuit and has been running strong this year and has been in the mirrors of the Budweiser for quite a lot. Chip Hanauer loves to win here. This was the place he'd like to win almost better than almost anywhere else in the whole country. He'd like to do it to Budweiser right in front of the hometown fans today. Chip Hanauer, literally the finest living unlimited hydroplane driver there is. His record proves it, folks. Just look it up. We're into just above a minute and 30 seconds. And as we've been watching the boats do some scoring up here a little bit, we're finding that there is a lot of holes, a lot of bumps in the lower corner, and that wind is affecting and picking the boats up, Scott.
Yes, Michael, I expect to have, if we have any problems at all, we're going to have them on this front chute. We're running directly into the wind. The fans may remember in #87 in testing when the Budweiser with their brand new boat blew over right here in front, and we certainly hope we don't have any type of that action. The Alberto's going down to our left right now. It appears that they have a problem. He's outside the outer course marker, so Mark's going to have another penalty added to his long list if he comes around there. And yeah, that's a no-no.
Yeah,
you got to stay inside that white buoy.
Unfortunately, that's going to cost him a lap on the start. There's the 1-minute gun. That'll cost him a lap on the start, unfortunately. They'll assess him because he did go outside the outside course marker. It's about 500 feet off the running track, and it's designed by the insurance people to keep the shoreline clear of a boat running. And Mark, unfortunately, didn't sight that, went around it, and he'll wind up in trouble right off the top even before we have a start. Now the cat and mouse begins at 36 seconds. You see, quite obviously, everybody is trying to get in their right starting positions. Jim Kropfeld wants to come up fast on the inside track with Chip Hanauer to the outside of him as they come up. Everybody in pretty good position, actually. The very best position of all the boats right at the moment with speed is Mitch Evans in the Oh Boy Alberto Presents Wild Waves. And also Mark Tate seems to be getting a fairly good starting position. I don't think he's aware of the fact that he's already out of here. All right, so as we get into the inside, let's set lanes for you. It looks like Jim Kropfeld will take the inside lane. Short distance from the turn to the start, and so they might come down a little on the hard side. Jim Lee's a little bit early. Chip Hanauer starting is going to be great. Jim might have been over too soon.
Boy, he was close.
If he wasn't, he nailed the start perfectly, but he didn't have the acceleration. Look at that Circus get loose as she goes into the lower corner. We do have some wind down there.
Winston is bunched in right on the inside, so it'll be interesting to see who comes out on top. With the Circus is clearly in front as they exit turn number 2.
As you check the reverse angle coming out, there's the Circus. Plenty of space between, of course, Chip Hanauer and Jim Kropfeld. And now the acceleration starts to show on the Circus. Begins to pull away. It doesn't appear as though Jim Kropfeld has the boat riding quite the way he wants it to, and he does not appear to be able to give much chase. Meanwhile, very, very loose in third place is the Oh Boy Alberto Miss KUBE, but that boat actually is going to get penalized. He's driving a lot harder than he ought to at this point, but they don't have radio contact with him, so they can't tell him that.
And Mitch Evans is coming right up on him, and he's in the inside, and Mitch might give him a little bit of a lesson here.
All right, Chip Hanauer easy out at lap number 1, comes across with a speed of 138.37 miles an hour. The Winston Eagle across at 122.59. The Oh Boy comes across now at 115.19 miles an hour. No records falling here. Through the lower corner, it's begun to turn into something of a parade, Scotty, and the superior acceleration and superior boat handling obviously favoring the Circus, and laboring to stay just in slot at this point is the Winston Eagle.
This is pretty much how we predicted it would go. Of course, the two premier boats on the circuit right now are the Circus and the Budweiser, and unfortunately for our fans, they didn't draw each other. We'll hope in the second heat that they will. But I think Jim has just settled back. He's decided that, second's 300 points, and 2 seconds is going to put him into the final just as well as anything else. He's really out of the points race. It's pretty much a foregone conclusion as we speak now anyway. Chip has an outside chance if he can get it together. And I believe the Winston is handling better in competition water than I've seen it in the past. Believe it or not, it's been worse than that.
Oh, yes, it has been indeed. Well, at the end of lap number 2, 131.37 for the Circus, and the Winston at across at 125.31 miles an hour. The parade continues. The Circus has lapped the last place Thor now, and continues to move out of the lower corner without any difficulty whatsoever. This is easily...
Mark Tate's real loose.
Yeah,
he's going to have to settle that thing down.
He's driving a lot harder than he should right now because he's actually going to draw the wrath of the officials here, and he does not know it in view of the fact that he does not have radio contact. His crew can't tell him that he made a mistake and probably ought not to drive the boat this hard. I'm sure that Jim Harvey's a bit on the nervous side. down in the pits right now that Mark is running as hard as he is in the Oh Boy Alberto Miss KUBE, but he's going down the back chute like a bandit as he passes Thor Racing. Chip Hanauer has toned the throttle down. No need to run hard now. The parade continues to stretch out into lap number 3 for Chip, who comes in at a speed of 100 and looks like 28 miles an hour. Have a little distortion on our URC computer screen here, so we're not able to read that real clearly. The Winston Eagle considerably further back now than it has been. And Mark Tate continues to try to make up ground. He's actually racing, trying to catch the Winston Eagle. Let's watch him as he goes into the lower corner here. There's Chip coming off the corner, looking strong. All three of them spread out as you see him through the lower corner. Now he is Mark Tate moving into the corner.
Mark's went considerably slower from the starting line to turn number 1 this time, and that was a very wise move on his part. He was way out of shape on the last lap.
The course actually pretty nasty looking, everything considered. Fortunately, the boats are not having to go so fast. We've got an awful lot of bad roller action all over this race course this morning.
It's a typical Seattle race course as far as I'm concerned. I've never raced here when it was any better than this. As a matter of fact, I think with the outside of the wind, I believe we have better conditions than what we had in the past, and that's because they've moved that log boom way off the racetrack, and I think that's a big help.
That's right. Chip Hanauer comes across again now into lap number 4, still running about 128 miles an hour. Circus crosses the line at 126, so they've decided to keep about the same kind of an interval. We'll get an interval between the two boats just so that you can see it, but it's a considerable difference. The Oh Boy is still plenty loose, even at low speed down the straightaway, and the Winston Eagle continues to ride hard, but ride well as she goes through the lower corner there, and the time interval is 13.45 seconds between the Circus and the Winston. Obviously, Jim Cropfeld has elected to just stay where he's at and get 300 points here.
Actually, he's done a good job of maintaining the distance. He hasn't lost any ground. He hasn't really gained any ground, but he's given the thing 5 laps of a good boat ride, and I think that indicates that Jim's probably feeling a lot better from the injuries he sustained in the car accident in Syracuse.
I think that's absolutely right, and I think he's got a lot more in it. He can demonstrate to Chip later on. This isn't the time to do it. Looking at the Circus coming straight down to you now. You can see there's lots of air under the race boat. There's the final time across for Circus. She takes the checkered flag at 119.27 miles an hour. Second place goes to the Winston Eagle at 123.66. Actually was coming in and closing a little ground at that point, but keeping pretty much about a 1,000-foot distance between the Circus and the Eagle. Meantime, we still have boats racing. The Oh Boy has come across, but the Oh Boy got the green this time and not the checker, which means that the Alberto Miss KUBE must go one more time around. There's the assessment of the penalty, and that will still get loose, even at low speed as it goes into that lower corner. There's your cool-off lap, Circus, and that's Chip Hanauer. Things going nicely. You'll notice on the rear end of the Circus that the right-hand fairing, that's the one furthest away from you, is taller than the inside fairing and the left-hand fairing. Why are they playing around with that, Scott? What's the theory there?
Well, both the Budweiser and the Circus team are the two teams that went to the wind tunnels this winter, and actually quite a lot of information was derived from that, and I believe that's why you aren't seeing the blowovers that we had last year. Myself, I had 3, and Jim Cropfield was in one, Chip Hanauer was in one. About everybody that went fast last year got on their noggin, and that is some information that they learned in the wind tunnel. What we learned on our boat is we have a wing that goes across the back. Now we call it a winglet, and we think that saved Tom Deeth a number of times this year. So it's aerodynamic. The Boeing engineers sitting and listening in our audience, I'm sure, can probably tell us more than we know.
Well, the key is, of course, for any one of these sleds, the further off the water you get it, the better it runs in terms of speed. But then you start taking over and having to do things with wind in order to keep them under control as soon as the hydrodynamic effects are minimized by the boat flying. And
that's the hardest thing with a hydroplane. You have hydrodynamic and aerodynamic forces that are actually combating each other, and it's a very fine balance.
Yeah, clearly not 1-to-1. In fact, about 820-to-1 is the actual ratio favoring hydrodynamic by a heavy margin. Well, there's your winner, Heat 1A. There's your second place boat, Heat 1A. And the Winston and the Circus are returning to the pit area. The Winston Eagle and his team are looking on now as they hold up their fluorescent card saying U10, park here. Third place boat, Miss Evans, showing a nice piece of driving and keeping and maintaining that Turbo Allison powered race boat. That's the Oh Boy Alberto presents the Wild Waves.
There's a perfect situation of a guy with a piston boat, didn't make any driving errors, didn't make any driving mistakes, was able to go out there, get third place points. If he can duplicate that in the second set of heats, he'll be able to get another 225 points and put him in the final, right. And that's what he's looking for.
This fella did make a mistake, unfortunately. That's the teammate, Oh Boy Alberto, and that's the Miss KUBE, and unfortunately Mark actually made his mistake long before the competition began. He was just out warming up and went outside the far outside buoy on the race course that says you must stay inside this one in order to be legal, and he got that 1 lap penalty. In fact, he escaped a very similar penalty just a week ago at the Tri-Cities because they had to shut down the race and they couldn't assess it as a result of a lap penalty due to some official problems on the barge, and he actually skated by one of those.
But then they got him in the rerun of the final. He got penalized into that. So
that's right.
His wallet has got to be getting light.
His
that guy.
foul play comes to no good. There's no doubt about it.
He should have picked the outer course marker and down in the other turn, because right here we're right underneath the official's eyes, and of course when I looked up I saw it.
Down to the pits now, Rick Corella.
What do you look forward to in the next heat? With this kind of water conditions, are you going to be able to go hard?
Well, you know, you always go hard, but it's how hard, and it's going to stay rough. This wind doesn't show any sign of dying, and there's not going to be any fewer boats on the log boom as the day goes on, so I think it's just going to be one of those real rough days.
Is this boat set up the one you want for this afternoon?
Yeah, I think we're going to make some minor changes, but overall I was pretty happy with it.
Have a good day racing.
Thank you.
Run this time out for you?
Well, ran pretty good. Got a little bad start, wound up behind Chip, so I thought I'd just take it easy and keep the Eagle back there in second place and do what we could do.
Some of the guys in the booth were talking about how you're feeling after that car accident in Syracuse and all that. How was the physical side for you today?
No problem there whatsoever. Nothing at all.
You pick up the 300 points, second place. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
All right, Jim Cropfield drive the Winston Eagle. Says he's okay, Mike.
Yeah, he's kind of old stony face, isn't he? This guy,
he's a gunslinger, isn't that guy?
Yeah, this guy rides into town with the mustache and the black scarf, I'll tell you.
He's not a PR man's dream, but he's a heck of a boat driver.
Yes, he is indeed. And the Winston Eagle, don't count this one out. He just sat back there in second, folks. He could have challenged if he wanted to. There'll be a time later on in the day to do that sort of thing. And so they're pulling the first round out of the water. Thor Racing finished entirely, went the whole distance. So did virtually all of them, with the exception of that penalty. The mechanical attrition was not obvious at all, and that's the kind of thing you're looking for in a small fleet like that. That's what the entertainment's made of.
And that's been true throughout the year. The boats just haven't been breaking down, and I think that's what's going to bring us one whale of a boat race here as the draws come out in the second heat, and maybe we can draw up more closely.
Just thrilled all hydro fans here in Seattle, Ted Jones, and Ted, it was a thrill for everyone, I'm sure for you, creating the slow-mo and seeing her on the water again.
Well, it was wonderful. It was truly, truly wonderful, because when I built it back in 1949, I didn't have any idea that it would be like this, and all the successes and all the friends we made, it's been real wonderful. And it was a lot of fun getting the boat to Detroit, winning the Gold Cup there and bringing it out here. That was the turn of my life that made it worthwhile.
Well, you really revolutionized the sport, really, with this boat design, the three.
Yeah, so I had about almost 80 miles an hour on the second place boat, so it wasn't too difficult to win the race.
Ted, we've been talking today a little bit about the difference between the turbine engines and the piston engines. Did you ever think at that time we'd see these turbine engines out here on the boats like the Circus and others?
I started building a turbine engine boat about 16, 17 years ago, and they had promised me from the turbine company to send me 2 turbines on memo billing because they're 165 grand a piece, and I couldn't pay for that much. So we only raced the piston engines because we could buy them brand new for $45 a piece, and with 1,800 horsepower, and they didn't do too bad. I designed a gearbox and had it built to turn the propeller 3 times engine speed. So we used to turn the props at 14,000, and we get about a 180 on the end of the chute. In those days, it was a 3-mile course. Instead of now, it's a 2.5-mile course, and we wouldn't have made that much speed then because the acceleration is so poor with piston engine. With a gas turbine engine, the instant you open the throttle, you got maximum horsepower.
Well, I'll tell you, those engines are no longer $45 a piece, that's for sure. With Ted Jones, Wayne.
All right, Steve, thank you very much. Let's go to the presentation stage. They, of course, have picked up that Mazda sponsorship. Mike Hansen drives that. Jeffs presents Mr. Pringles, and that's George Woods, of course, in that one, and then the Jackpot Food Mart. That's Steve David, so this will be a 4-boat heat. Nobody in this particular piece will be able to pick up the 127 points. Larry Lauterbach has joined me here at the pit area, and I want to talk to you a little bit about some boat racing that you're not doing this year. Why are you laying out this season?
Well, it seems we have more drivers than we have boats, Wayne. The Winston Eagle people and I decided to, at the end of the last season, split our ways, part company, and it was kind of a mutual parting. The chemistry wasn't there. The good chemistry wasn't there. You need to be a good winning combination. Jim Lucero, who I respect very highly, is an excellent boat building, boat designer. So am I. I'm an excellent boat building, boat designer. My record speaks for itself in how you're playing racing. And so we had different opinions on what should be done to the race boat. And I felt that we were going backwards last year, the second half of the season. No fault to Winston by any means. I'm still on very good terms with Winston people and back in North Carolina. I'm an East Coast driver myself, naturally. So right now I'm in kind of limbo, Wayne. I'm just hoping that something will come along next year. We need some more high-dollar teams in this sport and some more quality drivers. Yeah. And I feel like I can do the job, and I think that I proved that last year. In the last 2.5 years, driving for Steve Warner and all. So it was a situation where we just wasn't good chemistry.
Where's the special? Talk about things being on dock. What garage do you have that in?
It's back home in Virginia, and we run it about once a month back east. And just bring it out about once a month and keep my reflexes going. Sure. And do a little racing with that. And like you, play a little golf.
That's right.
Got my handicap down pretty good this year.
Tell me the power plant on the special. What did you put in there?
Well, we got a little 2.5 liter modified back home now. We call it Lauterbach Special. And we got a little Pontiac Fiero motor in that. It's a 2.5 liter modified, 135 mile an hour boat. Average about 105 miles an hour per lap. And had a lot of fun with that. Play with that back home. And we retired the Don Ryan's boat, the Lauterbach Special. We put that to pasture more or less. And Don sold the boat, and we just kind of took it easy. We did all we could do with that boat. We set all the world records. Still hold the world record 7 liter class. So real proud of that feat with Don Ryan up in Bellingham, Washington. And so now I'm just playing my own boat, a little 2.5 liter modified.
You got it. Larry, stay with me for Heat 1B, if you will, here. And we'll talk about it with Mike and with Scott when we come back. We're on Lake Washington, the Rainier Cup. And we are now 10 minutes away from Heat 1B.
Bredler and Bob, this particular boat, you've done a lot of work on it in the past week to kind of move things around and get ready for this race.
Well, of course, each time we run, it seems to be getting a little better. It's a revolutionary design by Ron Jones Marine, and there are a lot of unknowns. And each time it goes out, we get some new information, we adjust for it.
What sort of things have you done this week, Bob?
Well, we've moved the engine, the gearbox a little bit, and we've made some changes on the wings. It's a 3-wing design. We've made some modifications on the airflow across the front surfaces. We're going to find out pretty quick how well it works.
Okay, good luck to you, Bob. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Bob Fendler, the owner of the I-1077 Jackpot Food Mart, and they have a reliable driver in Steve David, and hopefully those adjustments will help them do well this afternoon. We'll find out.
Well, this is a team that's, of course, Scott, as you know, in a learning curve. It's a brand new boat. They got it finished late this year. They didn't get on the tour until Evansville. The boat is in a test curve at this point. You really don't like to go racing and test at the same time, but in this particular case, they don't have any choice.
They really don't, and they're actually doing a heck of a favor for the Circus camp, because they also have an identical design that they call the Circus Star, and so they can learn a lot by watching Steve David and Bob Fendler do what they can with Jackpot Foods.
Indeed, and this boat, I think, may just well be the future of the sport. If Ron Jones has anything to say about it, and he typically does, he does make the cutting-edge boat one way or another sooner or later, and he is going this direction. Lucero's gone the lobster direction. It doesn't appear to work well for the Winston team, but Lucero has done some thinking along the same lines as this boat, too, and I think you're going to see some strange shapes in years to come in unlimited hydroplanes. The Pringles moving on out to the race course as the 5-minute gun goes off on the barge. We already have the Miss Budweiser on the course. There's Pringles and the I-1077 Jackpot. This heat of racing, Heat 1B, is brought to you by GTE Northwest. At GTE, the power is on. And by Texaco, the star of the American road. Seafair thanks GTE Northwest for their support of this heat. All right, everybody's out there. We've got 4 or 5 of them out there now, and the wind conditions remain about the same, Scott, as they were to begin with. Let's just run down the boats we have in this heat. Miss Budweiser, of course, is the class of the fleet, but this is a boat that can catch her. Bill Worcester's Mr. Pringles. Jeff presents Mr. Pringles, a boat you drove last year here. The design is a Ron Jones inspired design. The U8 team has built it, and it's been around since 1988. The only guy other than George who knows about this boat better is you.
Well, that's true. I won 2 races in this boat, was second in the World Championship race in 1988 with it, but I also was upside down with it 4 times, so that's why we have George Woods in there today, and Scott Pierce is here with you.
They made some changes in it, all right. George Woods, of course, comes from Auburn, and this guy is one hot driver. He's a K-boat racer and a fine one. The U19 is the I-1077 Jackpot Food Mart, as we mentioned to you. Bob Fendler. Bob was a rookie here in 1966, Wayfarers Club lady. This new Ron Jones design is brand new, and a very personable Steve David is the fellow who drives it. This is one of the nicest guys you'll ever want to meet in any profession. He's not a half-bad boat driver either. He is in the real estate business down in Florida. Holset Miss Mazda from Madison, Indiana. Ron Jones designed the fastest piston boat in the West. Built in 1988, and Mike Hansen, one good boat builder as well as a fine race boat driver in his own right from Federal Way, Washington. He was at the wheel of that boat. His boat pretty little's Miss Budweiser. The Bud crew built this boat. It's off a Ron Jones inspired set
the Pringles just spun
Mr.
out.
Mr. Pringles just spun out pretty badly in the north turn. The Pringles is trying to get refired. Yes, it did.
That's very unusual. I can't imagine during a 5-minute period how you could spin the boat out like that.
There appears to be a problem with it also. He's having difficulty getting it up on plane. We did catch that. Let's go back and pick that up in just a moment. We apparently had a camera on it while he was testing. That was an unusual sort of thing to see happen there. The boat just in the score up and just doing some testing prior to the run of this heat, and we're coming up on the 1-minute gun, and to have that happen, very unusual.
Well, what happened is he fell into a hole and he just didn't see it, and it torqued the boat around.
Let's take a look at it. Here's George. Now he's entering the north turn. Whoa, look at that. Boom, right around. He fell right into a hole. He didn't see it at all. It blindsided him.
And you wonder why I'm not driving that boat anymore, huh, Michael?
Well, it's still running, but it's got George thinking about it right now. No question about it.
I'll bet it does. Well, it'd be interesting to see. I thought maybe George would give Tom a little run here just to see what kind of a boat he does have. He's had a pretty dismal showing in the East Coast. The boat just didn't handle it all for him, and he got it all together in Tri-Cities. He won a heat. He set a record. It looked like the Pringles was going to get their act straight and be competitive, and it appears now that now he's cutting through the infield. I don't know whether he's trying to score up on Tom or he's looking for change of clothes at the dock. I'm not quite sure what he's looking for at this point.
A little early to key Tom at this point. We still got a little before the 1-minute gun, obviously, as you see on your screen, but the Mr. Pringles will obviously want to see where Tom Deeth and Miss Budweiser is going to be. That's going to be the major competition in this heat. After doing a thing like that, of course, the course has definitely got George's attention now, and we'll have to watch very closely to see what happens, particularly if the boat is going to have any further kinds of problems in cornering. There is the 1-minute gun now. The clock ticks away.
Tommy Deeth is going to have the inside. He's in perfect position. You want to be at the exit pin at the 1-minute gun, and you want to be up at the entrance to turn number 3 with about 20-some seconds, depending on what lane you're in, 20 to 25 seconds left. Mike Hansen is way up early into the corner. He's going to have to drive out there by the bridge and wave to the fans going over I-90 to be able to make this start on time.
He will start very wide anyway, and he's going to have to do that to keep RPMs up and to keep his speed going. Everybody else seems to be in right good position, actually, for where they should be as they score for the start. Tom Deeth will take the center lane, the inside lane, that is, and he's a little off power right now to make sure that no one slides in under him. As soon as they come around the corner, they must commit right past the green and yellow buoy, and there's no lane changing thereafter. Looks like we will have the Bud in lane 1. The Pringles will be in a wide lane 3 or so. In lane 5, it's going to be the I-1077 Jackpot, and way off power and far too soon, really, is Mike Hansen in the whole set, Miss Mazda. But they're coming down to the line. There's the start, and it is a fair and legal start. Mazda also has some problems and is crackling pretty badly as they head down into that lower corner. Let's watch them as they come through. That's the Budweiser to the right of your screen. Tom Deeth has it completely under control there as he comes through the lower corner. George is keeping the RPMs high, though.
Well, the Budweiser was a lot faster through that turn. They were dead even going into the corner, Mike, and he came off the corner, and he has a rooster tail lead on the Pringles already.
George is running outside water, and the Budweiser does not appear to be running quite as light as she was when she was testing this morning. She looks nicely glued down at this point.
I can assure you I went to the camp after that test run, and they've made a number of changes, and some weight's been moved in the boat, and I don't think you'll see the Budweiser be too radical.
All right, Tom Deeth hitting some wild water up there in the north turn, followed very, very strongly by George Woods, who's trying to keep the pressure on. Official speed across at 140.14 for the Bud and 131.27 for the Mr. Pringles. End of lap number 1. Pringles still very loose going into the wind as it goes down the lower corner.
Very loose, and Tommy just ran a whole lot quicker than Chip did in his first lap, so I think that's something to keep in mind as we are looking towards our final.
Right, that's one of the messages that has to go to the circus camp, courtesy of the Bud team at this point. All right, they're trying to keep the pressure on at the Mr. Pringles camp, but it appears as though the Miss Budweiser is outclassing. Well, got a little loose that time in the back chute. There's your distance right now. A considerable distance between the two boats, and after about a lap and a half, it's probably wise for George to decide not to try to continue to give chase. It's not going to happen. Oh, see the Budweiser coming over those rollers as she comes through the corner. The entire race boat comes out of the water, but settles down pretty nicely. Bud now coming to the line. Pringles crosses the rooster tail behind, good 500, 600 feet behind. Second lap for the Budweiser, 133.48 miles an hour. The Pringles crosses the line at 126.28. Yes, the commitment is not there now to try to beat the Miss Budweiser at this point. There's the Bud coming through the lower corner.
That's pretty interesting that they both slowed down by the same amount. You know, if the Pringles was to run what he ran the lap before, he'd be catching them. But I think they decided to settle into their positions as they are. That will get 300 points, and considering the nasty spill he had up here in the 5-minute gun, I think he's going to be darn fortunate to get those 300 points.
Something of a gift, no question. Well, the boat you're looking at there is the whole set Miss Mazda, not running good. I got to tell you, there's a couple of distance there. They're not going up and down and getting fuel, and they're getting a lot of crackling. That boat may not make it the whole 5 laps around, but so far is holding off the I-107 Jackpot Food Mart at this point, at least, in 3rd place. Okay, Bud comes down to end lap number 3 into the wind, and a good gust of wind we're getting now on this front chute. Speed looks to be about 131 again, a little bit faster this time. This time the Pringles comes across at approximately, we're looking at 131 for the Pringles there.
So George is picking it up, and it appears that they've told him on the radio not to let the speed slip and to go ahead and keep the pressure on Tom. You never know what's going to happen. The closer he stays, the better he is. We have the whole set Miss Mazda going down, coming through turn number 3 and 4. That's going to move Steve David up.
Yeah, it'll move him up to 225 points. Steve will take those, thank you. I'm not surprised to see that happen. The boat came to the start line. The Mazda did in bad shape. She's now dead in the water. Bad shape mechanically, I should say. Meanwhile, Budweiser in perfect shape, looking excellent out there. Even though there are lots of rollers, the Budweiser is handling very, very nicely. The Mazda obviously is a spectator now. Bud comes across the line to take the green flag. One more to go at 133.78 miles an hour for Budweiser, maintaining a speed of just above the 130 mark. Pringles has dropped off the pace this time again. She's down to 126.86 miles an hour. So Pringles
still very loose.
Definitely conceded. Of course, if you're going that slow, you start launching off all this slopping rollers and you get a very, very bad boat race.
That's right. And people often wonder, you know, with Chip Hanna or Tom Deeth, when they tend to get out in these heats and why they're going as fast as they are, when obviously no one's close enough to really contend for the position. But the boat will get through the water much better, the faster speed than it will at a slower speed. You just pound the thing together. We have the Mazda refiring. I think they're going to try to finish this heat, but it doesn't look real good, Mike.
It doesn't look good for them. And that's the Jackpot I-177 Jackpot Food Mart going through the turn with the Budweiser as she comes down to take the checker, about to lap her, in fact, and I don't think Tom will do that. He'll just come alongside and give him plenty of room as he takes the checkered flag. Miss Budweiser, winner of Heat 1B, and the Jackpot just crosses the line at the end of lap number 4 and has one more to go. Meanwhile, the Mr. Pringles comes down to finish. Final lap for the Budweiser, 125.16 miles an hour, and the Pringles crosses the line at 120.89. Still trying to get refired is that Miss Mazda, but she's not likely to do so. That's the Jackpot off the corner, and that's the Mazda on the front straightaway, and she's not looking real healthy right now. Pringles picks up 300 points. George got himself a bit of a start there before things really got started, and he was probably thinking about that all through the 5 laps because the boat just fell right into a hole, came up sideways, really blindsided him, and it just about went right down into the basement.
If this would have been in the old style boats with the open cockpit, George would have picked himself up about 150 feet away from that boat. But
would have pegged him right out, especially if it was a rear cockpit. There's the I-1077 Jackpot Food Mart. And hey, they're trimming that boat out pretty nicely as they continue to work through this program. The boat looks good.
It seems to be getting better and better. I was hoping that maybe Steve could give Mike Hansen a little better run. It would do well for his career if he could go ahead and get the turbine past the piston boat. But it just didn't happen this heat. But maybe they learned some more. Maybe it'll go faster the next heat. We can only hope for the best.
Quite possibly, but they're continuing to move up the learning curve with this race boat, the I-1077 Jackpot Food Mart. And that, by the way, notice the porthole there right behind the driver. There actually is a second seat in that race boat. The idea there is to take a potential sponsor or chairman of the board for a ride, or maybe even a press person for a ride. Possibly, if the boat doesn't work out, they can also enter marine taxi service. That's got a possibility too.
It would be a very fast taxi, wouldn't it?
Well, you'd get to the airport in a hurry.
You're darn right you would.
You guys are funny listening to that noise coming out of the boat. Larry Lauterbach was sitting here next to me, and as it went on by us, the Miss Mazda, his nose wrinkled up, and at the same time, both of you said, "Uh-oh, something's wrong with that." Larry, you can hear that as they go by, can't you?
You sure can, Wayne. It's just popping real bad, and it's a shame that the Miss Mazda guys, I know, are underfinanced team like several other piston boats, and they're working real hard on that program. Mike's a good driver, and it's a shame they had the problem today in the first heat. Maybe they'll get straightened out for the
it's interesting. As Mike said, they got, 13,000 people sitting back there on the river rooting for it, and of course, this time it had very little luck as it does not finish.
He's got, Wayne, just as a matter of the record book, about 15 minutes he's permitted to try to finish. 15 minutes from the last boat across the line, and it's going to take all of that if he goes at this pace.
And it would behoove him to do it, Wayne, because there's only 9 boats entered into the field, and 7 of those are going to be in the final, so he really needs to finish this any way he can.
You got it. Heat 1B brought to you by...
he has to at least be demonstrating to the officials that he's got some prayer, and it's not so far looking good. In fact, he's now coming into the infield. He's expired. He gave it up.
He's got a big bass, though, hooked to the back.
Yeah.
He got dinner.
The thing that was interesting, there was a 12-year-old youngster over in the log boom in a rubber tire going about 2 miles an hour faster than he was at that time. So now it looks like he's cranking it up coming across the infield.
Well, that's the beauty of youth, you know.
His infield speed actually is better than his actual course speed. They'll have to discuss that.
400 points for the Budweiser Tom Deeth, as really expected. George Woods, after shocking himself, and I'm sure, as you said, alerting himself to the rest of the course, I bet he was glued to that wheel for all 5 laps as he took the spin in the north corner. George picks up 300 points, 225 for the Jackpot Food Marts with Steve David. And, of course, Mike Hansen in the Holseth Miss Mazda went kaput and gets a DNF. Did not finish that particular heat. We'll see if he can come back a little bit later.
Basically, gentlemen, so far we've had 2 parades on the windy water, and the real competition is yet to show up today.
Larry, nice of you to come join us for this Heat 1B and future plans. What do you think? You're going to build one? You're going to buy one? You're going to hop in one? What do you think?
Well, I certainly can't afford to build one, Wayne. There is some speculation about 1991. Hopefully I'll put a package together, and I'm sure the Scott's all excited about being tied with Budweiser team. And there's some rumors flying around, but they are right now just rumors.
All right.
Nothing concrete. So hopefully over the off season, something we can put together, and Larry will be back out here racing again.
Larry, nice to see you. Thanks for coming by. Let's go to Ron Callan.
Thank you very much, Wayne. Tom Deeth, how'd the first run go? I know the boat looked a little light in the practice run this morning.
Well, it felt pretty good. We made some changes, and it handled the water pretty good considering it's awful rough out there. So we'll just use the better part of discretion and try and get through this one without losing any pieces and keep her right side up.
You've had such a great season, #1 in the point standings. Things are going so well for you right now. You must feel pretty good about that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Of course, the Miss Budweiser is that's one of the best boats in the circuit, and just really pleased to be a part of this team. And Bernie Little keeps all of us running straight and true.
It sounds like the only real concern for you then is the conditions of the water out there.
Yeah, it's going to get at least more of the same or worse depending on how the day goes on. So we just do the best we can.
All right, Tom Deeth, winner of Heat 1B. Congratulations. Wayne, let's send it back to you.
Thank you, Ron, very much. Let's take another look at the finish through Kit's photo finish. The Bud, 400 points. And it's proving to be a 2-boat race, although there's 9 here and all cranked up. The Kit's photo finish is brought to us by the friendly folks at Kit's. For all of your photo finishing and developing, go to any of the Kit's convenient locations. Kit's is the picture place. Now there's a shot of the 3rd place finisher in that particular heat. Army helicopters flying by. That's that Steve David boat right there. Clay Johnson is the man that turns the cranks on this. Bob Fenler and Steve own that boat. It'll be interesting to see if the Circus and the Bud draw the same heats. Take a look at the point standings now of what's happened so far. You know, the Circus and the Bud, they each have 400. This is
riding a lot better. It's just lumpy. And our goal was, let's just run kind of with Madison. And if we had to, the last 2 laps of the 5, go ahead and outrun them. But thankfully, we didn't have to.
How do you look at it now? You get a third, and that's a nice start. You get some points, and you go into the next heat. What are you hoping for there?
Plan really is the same thing as try and do well and get some points the next heat to make it to the final. This whole race really happens when we get to the final. And I think this boat's quick enough to get us through the preliminary heat, the next one to get us there.
Steve, this year has really been kind of a learning curve for you guys all throughout the season. You started late. You kind of got into it. You did a little bit better in Tri-Cities last week, and you seem to be improving as you go along.
Oh, yeah. With the help of I-1077 and Jackpot, we've got the funding to really dial the boat in as we have been the last couple of days. And it's going to be, I think, a rocket by the end of the season.
Okay, Steve, thanks very much.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for coming to the event.
All right. Wayne and Mike.
George, you got quite a ride up there in that north corner.
Yeah, basically it wasn't anything really spectacular. I mean, it looks a lot worse from the beach than it does from inside the boat. It's one of those deals where we just kind of we're going around it real slow, and then the nose dropped in a hole, and she just hooked and came around backwards. It didn't kill the engine or anything, just lots of water spray around, and we just motored back out on the race course and get ready for the start.
Any boat damage?
No, I think we got a little bit of the cowling got tore here just a little bit from inside the boat. I couldn't see anything, and the crew was telling me on the radio, look good, so just go out there and have a comfortable ride.
You came down at a good start with the Budweiser. What's it look like? You got some power to use yet?
Oh, I think everybody today you're going to find out has got plenty of power. I think what we're going to have trouble with is just the boat handling here in Seattle. It's it's always lumpy and rough.
Good luck in the next heat.
Thank you very much.
Back to Ron Callan with the Mazda pit.
Thank you very much. You know, the Mazda boat had problems out there, only completing 3.5 laps. The owner, Bob Hughes, you called the URC over here to inspect the boat. Tell us why you did that, what the problem is.
One of the main reasons, we came back in with about 18 inches of water in our engine compartment. We sealed it off so that even just ambient water that would come in wouldn't go out the back. And I'm really concerned about it being a safety hazard for us and other boats that may have to do the same thing.
In other words, you don't want this boat sinking out there.
No, and we had a lot of water in there, and if you fill that engine compartment completely full of water and no way for it to get out, it kind of concerns us. We don't have any kind of anything dumping into the engine compartment. Of course, if you'd have an engine that would blow, then you might have something. But I feel like we ought to be able to drain into our exit tubes and our exit duct bills so that we can get the water overboard when we do get some on board. Like what happens like in a rough turn where you can get water that comes on board, and maybe somebody comes by you too close and throws a spray of water on you. You can fill your engine compartment full of water and be dangerous to not only to run, but also could be a possible way to cause you to sink.
All right, so the inspectors are taking a look. We don't know if you're going to run it again today or not.
Yes, we're just looking at, I just wanted them to see it. I know they're not going to change anything and look at it today, but I wanted them to see what happened to us so we could address it in the future. That was the main thing. We had engine troubles beyond that.
Yeah, we can